I just really appreciate, the kind things you've said about Dynamis. Obviously it's been a Holy Spirit ministry that has been going on for a long time. And, we do strive to, it reminds me of like St. Anselm. He said, fides quaerens intellectum. That's the faith journey, which means, faith seeking understanding. And that's the whole idea, right? The idea is for us to grow deeper in our faith as adults, and to take seriously, the kind of like the vow that we made when we received our confirmation, right? That we are soldiers for Christ. And, there's no greater love than for a man to lay down his life for his friends. And, we ought to have no greater love for someone than our own Lord and Master, our Savior, Jesus Christ. So to be willing to lay down our lives for him, if necessary, is something that is very serious. And, I think that a lot of people, it sounds like an interesting, thing to hear once from the pulpit, maybe. Of course, you always hear the joke about how some people are raised to believe that confirmation is like graduation from Catholic school, when it couldn't be further from the truth. It's actually the beginning of your adult journey. It's like your initiation into, the fullness of your baptism as a rational being, saying, yes, I am confirmed in my faith, and all that comes with it for the Lord. So, yeah, I mean, that's kind of the name of the game with what we've done and what we've accomplished over the years. And it's been incredible to be able to do that together in season and out of season, right? COVID or whatever else.
And you know what? And you really opened my eyes to a lot of things that I just didn't think were like things. I didn't really understand what mortal sin was, what venial sin was, what it is, what it does. Lots of important concepts like levels of prayer, angels, the background of that, and different. If you hit Father Chad Ruperger, right? Am I butchering his name? I always Ruperger.
You got a lot of people do a soft G. They say Ripperger, but it's a hard G. It's Ripperger. So you got that right.
Yeah, he just, he really goes deep into the faith. I kind of at first, it felt like, I was taking like an AP class, like an AP catechism.
I'll take that as a compliment. I appreciate that. Although I do always temper it, because you get so many different souls on different levels of their journey, whether they're lukewarm or on fire, but just want to go even deeper, or introverted versus extroverted, right? We get into the Catholic temperaments, as you know, and, that's something as a practitioner of that. I've studied this stuff for many years. Obviously, I go for theology, and when you know how to read a soul and understand where they're at, it really helps to, it's called spiritual theology, right? It's this idea of, that's where any good spiritual director comes in. They can tell, as you, particularly when it comes to the temperaments, when you become adept at it, you can tell what temperament somebody is almost immediately, right? It's in the way someone walks. It's in the way they talk. It's in the way they carry themselves. And so I firmly believe in, temet nosce, right? Know thyself. It's the plaque above the Oracle's house and the entrance in that first Matrix film, where there's all kinds of archetypes. It seems to be a very, very popular film. And it's so important to know thyself. And when not only you can learn and discover these things and apply them in your own life, but then also to give the tools to your friends, right? To anyone that's open to it. Now we're really community building. You know what I mean? So it's been amazing for us all to be able to interact with each other and to go deeper. And it's good to know what sin is.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. It's like you think you kind of know what sin is, and then you're like, oh, it also includes that. And I'm like, okay, now I need to start making some changes here.
Totally.
Which is important. It was like a tough realization. Oh man, I'm not doing things the right way. Then it was also like, now I have the opportunity to fix it, which is always important, which is really the goal of ministries like this, is to get people on the right path.
Totally. And there comes a point where it's all grace too, right? We're not leaning on our own strength, just like we're not leaning on our own understanding even, right? Like I always like to emphasize, Pat and I talked about this in episode 8, that this isn't a ministry for scholars, and we're not trying to become scholars, but we're getting armed with the knowledge. And so we take in, sometimes it can feel like a fire hose, which isn't all bad. There's famous theologians out there that are known for literally being a fire hose. They show up at Our Lady of Victory or wherever, the local thing gets put on, but people flock to it. So there is something to be said for, all right, you get the exposure, but then you take a minute to let it all sink in, right? Let the seeds get planted in fertile soil, and that's where we have our group conversation. As you mentioned, everybody's engaged, everybody's involved. And, that's where you really start to make some progress, because we all get the opportunity to make it pragmatic for ourselves. And, I always mention, for anybody that might not be picking up on some of the concepts right away, think about who Our Lady always appeared to, right? It's usually typically the poor, uneducated peasant children. In other words, it's not about being
having a great intellect or having a great degree.
Not at all. It's about just the humility of the experience. And so there's something for everybody, right? That's the point that I'm making. And it's just if people allow themselves to experience it. And to your point, sometimes every once in a while you might have to have a conversation with somebody that's just not willing to believe that sin is real, for example. I hate to say it, but you run into some strange scenarios like that sometimes, and you just have to, in humility, say, maybe this ministry isn't for you now, and I think that I learned that early on in becoming a ministry leader, that somebody pointed out that, if you never say no, all your yeses mean nothing. And that might seem counterintuitive to some people, right? Because kind of like how you mentioned, you saw that show and you had this strange caricature of what it meant to be an authentic Christian or what it doesn't look like. And, I think we all go through that sometimes, particularly earlier in our conversion journey, where, I certainly had my own viewpoints on, religious people. And, I think one of the caricatures that's out there that's not authentic, that's not effective, let's say, is this idea that, oh, well, aren't you supposed to be a Christian? Therefore, you're supposed to be just loving and accommodating to everything. And it's like, nope. No, we say no to sin. We put our foot down, and you have to set strong and healthy boundaries in different areas, like love the sinner, hate the sin, stuff like that. Those are real things. Those aren't just concepts. And, it takes a level of fortitude to do that and to develop a culture that has that. But so what would you say is, what are the 9 levels of prayer, by the way?
I can never remember them, but I know. And you'll be the first one to say it. It's your favorite soapbox.
It is my favorite soapbox. It is.
You always go through them, and I always forget. I'm like, oh, he's on a soapbox again. As you're saying them.
But as long as you know, and obviously, where eternal beatitude begins in this life, right? It's the subtitle of this show, because it is so important to strive for the 9th level of prayer even in this life. But as long as you remember that, level 2 is mental prayer, right? And the upper 7 levels of prayer beyond that are accessible through that doorway. That's the point at which you start to root out basically the mortal sins in your life, right? And that's where grace takes over at a certain point in this journey. It's like I said before, it's not about what we can do at the end of the day. It's about disposing ourselves to God's will to take over. And
it's about putting yourself in the right position, like being here, being at church, going to mass daily. I've been I was thinking about this the other day when you sent the text about coming in today. I was thinking a couple of years ago, I never would have imagined I'd be I'd be doing the little office. I didn't even know what it was, let alone thinking I'd be praying from a book 3 or 4 times a day. Oh, on a good day,
right?
Or going to mass, going to daily mass a couple times a week. There was a point where I was I'm going to mass every Sunday. That's all I need to do.
Check the box.
Yeah.
5 precepts of the church. Done.
Yep. I did what I did. I did the bare minimum. I helped out. I volunteered for stuff. I was a good person. I thought, all right, I'm in good shape. Because you look out at the rest of the culture, and they're not usually going to church and stuff.
Right.
Or, they might go to church, but it feels like it goes in one ear and out the other. And then, it was the sense of humility, like, no, there's, Francis, that's not good enough for you. You got to go even higher. It's not just good enough to be above the others, which I probably even wasn't. You got to go even higher than that. You got to strive for more.
Totally.
Strive for perfection. So it was good to, it's good to do that.